Alagaesia was once a peaceful kingdom, protected by dragon riders. But everything changed when a greedy rider, Galbatorix, decided to seize power by simply eliminating all the competition.
There is no one left for you to fear.
Few of his opponents have survived. They're called the Varden, and no one knows where they hide. Now, the people live in fear of King Galbatorix and his sorcerer Durza, but some are still brave enough to defy their power, like Princess Arya. She's running from Durza because she has just stolen something from the king, and she knows he'll send his creepy friend after her. Sure enough, here comes the sorcerer setting fire to the whole forest just to trap one little girl.
Give it to me.
But in his defense, she's not such a helpless damsel after all. Holding up the stolen stone, Arya says a few magic words. Bright light begins to shine from the stone before it disappears. Durza is livid to see it's gone. At the same time, a poor farm boy named Eragon goes deer hunting. Surprised by a sudden blast, he finds a blue stone on the ground. He picks it up and heads back home. At the village, the royal guard is recruiting soldiers. Every village must offer its share. A man is begging the officers not to take his sons. He knows they never come back. One of the soldiers says he should be happy his son will be a hero.
Expensive taste, Eragon.
Eragon tries to trade the store for a nice cut of meat. He says he found it while hunting in the spine. Clearly terrified, the butcher tells him to put it back. It must belong to the king. Then he kicks the boy out. Outside, the guards are bullying a man named Brom who pulls a knife but then seems to have second thoughts, letting them take his poultry. Eragon is amused to see someone at least trying to stand up to them. Eragon gets home from the hunt empty-handed and is immediately teased about it by his cousin Roran. The boys horse around for a while, pretending to be warriors.
Hey, come on, boys, that's enough.
Once he's all done, Eragon gets the forbidden stone from his satchel to inspect it, but he's not able to learn much. While they're working the field together, Roran tells his cousin that he's leaving the farm. He wants to be gone before the soldiers come for him, since he's old enough now and he doesn't want to serve in the king's army. At night, Eragon has a conversation with his uncle, Garrow, about Roran's plans. He says Eragon must be prepared, because he'll soon be old enough as well, and he'll have to make a decision. The boy says he likes the farm and has no great ambitions. Then, he takes the opportunity to ask about his mother, Garrow's sister. We learn that she left him there when he was little and left in a hurry. Roran leaves in the morning with sad goodbyes.
Be strong, brother.
Eragon feels miserable, left all alone in his lame farm with nobody to play with. But that won't last much longer, as we see the mysterious stone begin to hatch. It turns out it was actually an egg, and this little blue creature comes out of it. Eragon wonders if it's some kind of bird, which makes us wonder if he's ever seen a bird. The touch of his hand on the animal's head sparks a bright light which seems to be felt across the kingdom by Brom, Galbatorix, and Arya. We can see that Durza, however, didn't get that memo. He's still interrogating Arya about the stone, and she says it's too late now. Baby Dragon is among us. A spiral shape is now burnt onto Eragon's palm.
Hungry?
Not very talented at parenting, he pours milk into a dirty bag and tries to feed the baby. He soon finds out that it's not a calf either, as it prefers to prey on the rats. At the castle, Durza brings the bad news to the king. Trying to downplay such a colossal failure, he says the egg hatched to a stupid farm boy. Galbatorix replies that the person is irrelevant. Baby Dragon is a threat to his power because it confirms an old legend, and that's the kind of thing resistance people just love. Durza says there's no one left for him to fear, and the king seems to ignore the genocide accusations implied. He says there are still dwarves, elves, and the Varden. All of them are on the outskirts of Alagaesia right now, just waiting for their chance. So he wraps up the meeting, tasking Durza with Eragon's elimination.
Kill the rider.
At night, Eragon overhears a villager named Horst complaining. His sons were taken by the king's soldiers, and he hasn't heard of them since. Some of the other guys try to shush him, afraid of the ever-snooping guards. But Brom is there too, and he won't miss the chance to stir things up. He starts to talk about the good old days when dragons were still around and the riders were invincible. It all ended with Galbatorix and his rule of terror. Just as predicted, one of the guards comes to shut him up. Eragon wants to hear the end of that story, but all all Brom can say is that the Dragon Age will come again. Hopefully, now Eragon has a better idea of what that puppy really is. It's not long before baby dragon becomes teen dragon. Eragon tries to teach her how to fly, ignoring the fact that he can't do that himself. Luckily, she doesn't even need his help. Just when he begins to wonder if she's gone forever, mommy issues, you see, he feels a sting on his palm. Up on the clouds, lightning bolts seem to speed up adolescence, and Eragon's jaw drops when Lady Dragon comes back to him. Not only full-grown, but also quite chatty, talking to him through telepathy. She says her name is Sapphira. Eragon is her rider.
And you are my rider.
So he takes the first opportunity to sneak into Brom's home and pester him about dragon breeding. The man tells him to mind his corn and get lost. This is no topic for farm boys. Eragon then calls him a coward. Before storming out, he says he knows the dragon story is true. Brom looks intrigued now as he checks on a fancy sword he keeps hidden. When Eragon leaves the house, he can tell something is wrong in the village. There's a strange visitor at the butcher's, and as the boy comes close, he hears his own name. The butcher is telling his rather violent guest all about Eragon and the stone, as well as the location of Garrow's farm. He runs to warn his uncle, but Sapphira gets to him first. The boy yells that his family is in danger, but she says it's too late now, and there's nothing he can do but save himself. As Eragon rebels against the idea and only seems to really suck at dragon riding, Sapphira drops him on a heap of hay, saying that he's giving her no choice. Rushing into the house, he can see she wasn't lying to him. It really is too late. Now Eragon is mad at Sapphira because he could have made it there in time to save Uncle Garrow if it wasn't for her. She explains he would be dead too if she hadn't intervened. But the boy is just too sad to listen now and sends her away. But that doesn't mean he'll be left alone for very long. Brom shows up to check the boy's palm, immediately asking where the dragon is. As Eragon refuses to go with him before giving his uncle a proper burial, Brom simply sets the place on fire.
Now, go on!
Then he puts the boy up on a horse and leads the way. After riding for a long time, they stop in the middle of the woods. Brom tells him to call the dragon, but Eragon says it's all her fault. About to lose his patience with this brat, Brom explains that Sapphira was protecting him from the Durza and the assassins he conjures up. He also tells him about the Varden and their stronghold in the Bior Mountains. Finally convinced, Eragon calls Sapphira and apologizes for his behavior before introducing Brom as a dragon expert. Sapphira says she'll be the judge of that, thank you very much. But as he goes on to assess the specimen, it's easy to see his profound admiration. Now that these two are friends, they just convince Farm Boy here that he has a duty now. According to Brom, a dragon egg only hatches in the presence of their rightful rider, and then they're both connected forever. But while the rider can outlive his pet, no dragon survives its rider. That means his life is in great danger because the king also knows all this stuff. As he must get rid of Sapphira, he'll probably pick an opponent who plants corn instead of one who spits fire, don't you think? Back at the evil castle, the Yurgles all pause with a gasp when their master simply materializes in the room, announcing that a Razak has failed to slay the rider. Durza selects one of them to get the job done. Brom seems to be very familiar with Durza and his gang, so he predicts that move. He has Eragon tell Sapphira to keep checking for Urgles and Razaks while they try to reach the mountains undetected. He also says she must only come to them at night. Off they go then, riding towards the Darret River. Halfway there, they see a group of Urgles. And Brom says these are former rebels, but now they are the king's guard. Instead of getting out of their way as soon as possible, Eragon has the brilliant idea to fight them. He's proud to inform Brom that he used to train with his cousin Rory and should be ready for a real battle now.
Right then, let's see these skills of yours.
So Brom takes a few hours to put the boy in his place and to warn him that he won't be fighting little boys. As night falls and Sapphira joins them, Brom starts a fire for them. Eragon can hear him say something right before the first spark comes, but Brom has no comments about it. The next day, they reach the village of Darret, where a hooded young man seems to be spying on them. Brom says he has errands to run and tells Eragon not to talk to anyone. Of course, he immediately goes into a tent and talks to a pretty girl. Her name is Angela, and she offers to read his fortune in the dragon bones. When he leaves the tent, Urgles are waiting for him. Brom fights them off bravely, but it's Eragon who saves them both. With the same word Brom used to make fire, he shoots an arrow of wildfire that blows them all up. Then he passes out and has a long nightmare with Arya. In the morning, he wakes up with his hand burning and Brom explains what happened last night. Eragon used the ancient language of the elves, casting a fire spell. He warns him about the dangers and limitations of magic, but he's also very proud of his pupil, and to show it, he has a surprise. Sapphira shows up with a saddle on.
It's not so bad up here.
And this time he does much better. While poor Brom screams instructions from the ground after several wild maneuvers, Eragon tries a spell that makes them see as one. That's how he spots a bunch of Razaks about to ambush Brom and comes down to rescue him. They manage to defeat the enemy, but Sapphira's injured and Brom is furious. Eragon then grabs his hand and finds out why. Brom was once a rider too. His dragon died trying to protect him from Morzan, another dragon rider who had switched to Galbatorix's side. Brom made sure he paid for what he did and even took his sword, but Morzan's dragon was the last one, apart from the royal dragon. Brom has lived with that guilt ever since. Meanwhile, Durza is getting tired of his incompetent underlings. He decides it's time to work smart and not hard. Penetrating Eragon's dream, he pretends to be Arya, Princess of Alismera. Fake Arya says she's a prisoner at Gilead and Eragon is the only one who can save her. That plan works beautifully. Refusing to listen to Brom,
I do understand.
or even Sapphira, Eragon is now hell-bent in saving Arya from the evil sorcerer, even if that means going the opposite direction of the Varden. So he flies to Gilead, waits until night, and then sneaks into the castle. Using the dragon sight spell, he can easily see through the walls and soon finds the girl. When the real Arya sees him there, she tells him to leave at once. He shouldn't have come here. Eragon is confused to hear that, but the trap is soon explained by Durza coming out of the shadows and mocking the boy's feeble look. A brief magic battle begins, but Eragon can already see he's way over his head. Coming out of nowhere, Brom jumps in front of an arrow to save the boy. Durza seems to melt away when hit, but his smile shows this is not the end for him. Eragon and Arya carry Brom through Gilead while trying to fight off the guards. Sapphira comes to the rescue, and she's not the only one. That hooded boy from Darrett is up on the roof, shooting arrows at the guards and helping them escape. The poor dragon takes them as far as she can with such a crowd on her back.
Please, hail!
Eragon tries to heal Brom with magic, but he doesn't make it. Sapphira gives him a dragon rider funeral, and they all say goodbye. It looks like Arya is Eragon's new partner now, but as they get ready for their journey, she falls ill all of a sudden, poisoned by Durza. The sorcerer can still reach her from wherever he's hiding. The Varden is their only hope now. Arya places her hand on Eragon's face to show him the way to them. When he's back from that mental trip, Sapphira drops what looks like a load of black cloths, but it turns out to be a person. In fact, it's that hooded boy that's been following them since Darrett. His name is Murtaugh. King Galbatorix made him an orphan, and he's been waiting for the legendary return of the Dragon Rider ever since. Eragon and Sapphira aren't sure they can trust this guy, but he says he knows his way through the mountains. He can get them to the Varden. Now, those Varden better be good.
We'll have to go by foot from here.
They ride through all kinds of inhospitable places, leaving Arya in Sapphira's care. She warns them that Urgals are closing in. When the boys reach a waterfall, they jump into the water and swim towards a secret cave, where they're greeted by armed soldiers. At Gilead, it's time for Durza's yearly evaluation or something like that. The king isn't happy at the mission failure, but he does have good news. Eragon has led him directly to the Varden's secret location. Now Durza's last chance to impress the king is to vanquish the resistance. He tells him to take the whole army and leave no survivors. In the cave, the boys meet Ajahad, the leader of the Varden. Eragon proves his identity by calling Sapphira inside as they all watch in amazement. Ajahad says the Varden healers can take care of Arya, but their hospitality is not extended to Murtaugh. He's the son of Morzan, the traitor. The boy swears he's nothing like his dad and always hated the man, but the Varden will take no chances at a time like this. Durza has gathered a crowd of Urgals right outside their stronghold. Wearing his fashionable armor, Eragon barely recognizes himself in the mirror. Arya is all well again now, and even Sapphira has her own outfit for battle. Then the Urgals begin the invasion, but Eragon always finds the time for a philosophical chat. So he's asking Sapphira why she chose him. She tells him it was for his heart, and then she majestically breathes fire for the first time. So it begins. The Varden are obscenely outnumbered, but it doesn't even matter because the whole thing quickly becomes a magic contest when Durza comes in riding the ugliest dragon you've ever seen. Murtaugh breaks free and joins the fight just like everyone else, pretending to make any difference. Ugly Dragon almost bites off Sapphira's head, but Eragon saves her.
This wound weakens me.
She's wounded and weak, but she can still fly him to Durza. With his teacher's sword, he aims at the heart this time. Down goes Durza, taking the ugly thing with him. Now Eragon is finally strong enough to use all his magic. So even if it drains him until the morning, he's able to heal Sapphira. His friend Murtaugh is by his side too. Having cleared his name now, Eragon and Sapphira fly away as the Varden people celebrate the victory. And this is the end. This was a recap of the 2006 movie Eragon by Davis Entertainment, starring Edward Spielers and Jeremy Irons. So what do you think? Who was Eragon's best sidekick? Brom, Arya, or Murtaugh? Let us know in the comments below with #CinemaRecap. Until next time.